it's Jessie from Squeegee Ink and welcome back to Printer's Corner. This is quite a cool episode all about troubleshooting screen printing issues. We have 3 questions this week. One of them's about sticky ink, one of them's about over flashing in between prints, and thirdly we've got a little bit of difficulty printing halftones and cleaning the mesh out afterwards. If you would like any of your questions answered, please use hashtag Printer's Corner when you're asking the question, and you can do that in any of the comments of our videos or give us a quick DM and I'll try and answer your question in a future episode. Our first question is from Dompre, and they've asked, "Hi, my prints are always getting sticky after I dry them. Any idea why that happens? Crying face emoji." I think I need a bit of context to answer the question, but they asked the question on one of our YouTube videos about different ways to cure water-based inks and screen printing methods for small studios. I would anticipate that they're also using water-based inks, but I'm not sure. The only times I've really come up against sticky ink once you've dried it is when I actually used a fabric ink onto paper just because I had it there and I thought it would be okay. That was a water-based ink as well, and I made all these paper bags and then the ink was always sticky. It was dry, but it would, like if you put more paper bags on top, it would stick and it'd be a bit tacky. In that case, it might be that you're not using the right ink for the right substrate, because paper inks and fabric inks are a little bit different because the fabric inks need to cling on and adhere and cure onto fabrics. The first thing I'll do is check that. The second thing is sticky prints are often more associated with plastisol ink, which is made of plasticizers, and it literally has to melt to get to a nice cure and adhere to the fabric. So it might be that you're using plastisol ink when you should be using, or you think you're using, water-based ink. So that's the second way that I would think of that. And the only other thing that I can think of why you'd have sticky prints is because you've heated up the plastisol so much that it's kind of gone to like a tacky, melted finish, which it might even be a bit shiny, but you'd have to really heat it up to get to that kind of stage. I think it's probably likely that you're not using the right ink for the right job. One other thing that I've just thought of is that some water-based inks, normally like the whites and the things that are called high solids water-based ink, they do actually contain some plastics. So they might just not be feeling like typical water-based ink that you're used to. For example, like a black ink might feel almost like you can't even feel it on the fabric, whereas a white might be so high solids with plastic in it that it actually feels a little bit tacky and more like plastisol ink. So it might just be that you're using a brand of ink that's calling itself high solids so that it's more opaque, and you're just trying to get the right balance of what ink brand you're using on different substrates and what finish and effect you're looking for in the end. Give us another question, give us a little bit of context, and I'll try and answer that again once I know what you're printing on with what kind of ink. The second question that we've got is from Neil Mansfield, and they've asked, "Ace video, Jessie, thanks, thumbs up emoji. Couple of questions for you. Were they all flashed before cure? Also, can you cure with a flash dryer only? I thought it was okay to do a 3-minute flash to achieve the cure. Love the videos, our go-to resource, thumbs up." Thanks Neil, that's very kind. This is definitely a question that I need to take in parts because there's 3 little questions in there. And this is all referring to the YouTube video that we did about methods of curing water-based ink in a small studio. And in that particular video, we were doing dark ink onto light garments. And it's quite a cool design, so go check out the video. The first part of Neil's question is, were they all flashed before cure? So I think he means, were we flashing the shirts before we put them in the conveyor dryer or did our other methods of curing? No, we didn't actually turn on the flash dryer because the video was about really curing the water-based ink, and we were doing dark ink on light garments where you can just do it with one hit. You don't have to dry the ink in between layers or anything like that. So we didn't turn on the flash, and that's one of the reasons why screen printers love printing black ink on white shirts is really easy and quick. So no, none of the shirts were flashed, we didn't even turn it on. The second part of Neil's question is also, can you cure with a flash dryer only? I don't think flash dryers should be used or thought of as things that you can use to cure any ink. They're really just a tool for printers to be able to layer up different colours in the design, and that's it basically. Think of it as something that you use to make something just about dry enough so you can put more ink on top, but don't think of it as a tool for curing ink. Okay, that's just a kind of a bit of a blanket statement, but it's something that I believe in. The third part of the question is, I thought it was okay to do a 3-minute flash to achieve the cure, especially with water-based ink. I understand why you're saying like a 3-minute curing time, but you can't really cure ink under a flash dryer for 3 minutes, because normally the flash dryer is quite close to the garment and it would just put out so much heat. If you're trying to cure the ink, you wouldn't be able to evaporate all the water off. You wouldn't be able to achieve a cure before the shirt has burned underneath the flash, especially for 3 minutes. I've never tested it myself, but I'm pretty sure that's a good way to burn a platen. No, I don't think you can do a 3-minute flash. You might be trying to simulate what's happening in a conveyor dryer as well, where you've got the shirt going through the conveyor dryer for a long time, but it's definitely not the same as holding a flash over a shirt for a long period. Maybe just don't use the flash and think of it as a curing device, Neil, but hopefully you can use one of the other methods that we talked about with the heat press, the cold cure catalyst, or if you're really lucky, using the conveyor dryer. I'd really like to know your kind of take on that in the comments as well, whether you think that you used a different method to us when you're curing your water-based ink. So let us know in the comments. I'd like to get a discussion going about that, and what you think about people who are using flash dryers to cure ink. It's a really interesting subject. Our final question comes from Shabir Hussain Abi, and they've said, "Hi Chessie, I have a question that how do you manage ink blocking in the screen while printing many garments? I have the issue that if I stop printing for 4 or 5 minutes, ink gets dry and blocks the halftone design on the screen. Although I wash out the design, but there is still some blockage remains. It would be so grateful if you help me with that." I'm assuming that Shabir is printing with water-based ink, because that's where people tend to have the problem of ink drying in the screen, blocking details and all those types of things. There's quite a few things that you can do. You could lower the mesh count of the screen that you're using. That would hopefully allow more ink flow through the screen. It might reduce the fineness of the halftones that you can expose on the screen, but not too much. That might be the first one. But I think the main thing jumping out at me on this is, if I'm leaving my screen for 4 or 5 minutes in between prints, that's just a little bit too long for water-based ink. The water is continuously evaporating out of the ink, and it is drying in all the time. There's one cool way that you can do to kind of stop the ink from drying in between prints, and that is doing a really thick flood layer of ink. So loads of ink on the top of the screen, and then a really light flood with the squeegee, and just deposit a thick layer over the whole image area, maybe like 1 or 2 millimeters. If you have a really thick layer of ink over the top of the image, it's not allowing the ink to dry in the screen as much, and it does give you a little bit of leeway, but maybe not 4 or 5 minutes. So maybe you just need to speed up your printing a little bit more, or have a friend there to move things around so that you're not leaving your screen to dry in and get all clogged up. That would be my main point there. Other things I can think of is that the screen might be in direct sunlight or near a flash dryer, which is again like heating it up and allowing the water-based ink to dry in the mesh. And maybe you're not fully clearing the mesh when you're printing it, so maybe you're not applying enough pressure through the whole design, and you're allowing some bits of ink to build up and get blocked in the design. And they're the main things that I can think of. You could also like mist the ink with like a spray bottle and keep the moisture in there flowing. If you guys have any other tips for Shabir, let us know in the comments. Any tactics that you've got for not letting the water-based ink dry in the mesh so quickly. And the last part of Shabir's question is actually about the ink drying in the screen so much that they can't even wash it out at the end. And a really cool product that I've been using and suggesting loads, especially for home printers, is actually this chemical by Franmeyer, and it's called water-based ink remover. So it is what it says on the tub. It basically dissolves the pigment down a lot so that you can really easily scrub it away with a little bit of the soft side of a sponge and some water. And it really does dissolve the hardened in water-based ink. And it's reclaimed some screens that I thought I wouldn't be able to save without taking all the emulsion off. That's definitely a really good chemical that I would suggest for Shabir as well. Hopefully I've answered that question. To round up this week's video, which was about how to stop ink from blocking in the screen when screen printing, I'm going to say watch out for heat, because heat is your enemy when printing with water-based ink when it comes to the ink drying in the mesh. If you have any more questions for us, please don't forget to use #PrintersCorner, and you can ask us questions in comments of our videos and on Instagram, and you can even DM us.